In Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, Vanguards represent the gold standard for frontline fighters, being the most effective when surrounded by enemy combatants, ducking and weaving in melee range, dealing massive damage whilst avoiding and negating incoming attacks with their masterful defensive maneuvers. In order to select the Vanguard archetype at level 16, your Rogue Trader will need to have started its journey as either a warrior or an officer. This is quite an important consideration as these starting archetypes play very different, and as such will ultimately influence your Vanguard's playstyle and capabilities. A warrior Vanguard doubles down on combat effectiveness, making the ultimate tank, whereas the officer Vanguard leans more into the squad leader fantasy, leading from the front, providing additional defensive buffs to your brothers in arms. From the get-go, when choosing the Vanguard archetype at level 16, you gain access to its Keystone feature, Unyielding Beacon, a passive ability which has your Vanguard accumulate stacks of Unyielding Beacon, which then is used and consumed in order to fuel the other Vanguard abilities. During the 20 levels you will spend in the Vanguard archetype, you will gain access to 3 different archetype abilities, and you will be able to choose from one of the 6 available options at level 17, 22 and 30. These Vanguard abilities are Defensive Stance, Wall of Rockcrete, Bulwark, Disposal, Force Distraction and Follow My Lead. Now let's take a quick look at each one of these Vanguard abilities in action. The first archetype ability is Defensive Stance, which increases your Vanguard's parry ability by 10+2 times the number of Unyielding Beacon stacks that you have at the time of activating the defensive stance. Now, if you do make a successful parry from an incoming attack within the turn that defensive stance is active, you get to make an attack of opportunity against that enemy with a slight debuff of -20 to your weapon skill. Next up is the defensive powerhouse ability Wall of Rockcrete, which when activated grants you and all of your allies within a 3-cell radius a number of temporary wounds equal to 3 plus the number of Unyielding Beacon stacks that you have accumulated at that time. And on top of that, all successful attacks against your allies until the start of your next turn is also reduced by 50%. The Bulwark Vanguard ability grants your Vanguard a defensive buff in the form of a deflection bonus against all ranged attacks, equal to the number of Unyielding Beacon stacks your Vanguard has at the time of activation. Furthermore, your Vanguard also plants their feet, refusing to move, holding their ground, becoming immune to any push or forced movement. Next up is the Vanguard ability Disposal, with which your Vanguard releases a war cry, resulting in an enemy of your choosing attacking your Vanguard. However, this attack creates an opportunity for all of your allies around you, allowing them to counter-attack with a melee weapon, each of which has an increased chance of landing, equal to 10+2 times your Vanguard's Fellowship bonus. And the cherry on the attack of opportunity sundae is that all of these attacks do additional damage equal to your Vanguard's Fellowship bonus. The next Vanguard ability, Force Distraction, is maybe one of the best archetype abilities for when one of your allies gets swarmed by enemies. In effect, when activating Force Distraction, you choose one of your allies that is surrounded by enemy combatants, forcing each of them within a radius of 3 cells to make a willpower saving test. This test, however, is also taken by the enemy combatants with a -15 penalty, and on a failure means that all of those enemies, instead of attacking your ally, turn their attention to you instead. In addition to this, and inconsiderate of the result of that willpower test on those enemies, the ally that you chose does not provoke any attacks of opportunities against the selected enemies, enabling them to move freely in and out of threat range, as well as make ranged attacks when directly adjacent to enemy combatants. The last of the Vanguard abilities is Follow My Lead, which when activated increases your damage output potential and armor penetration equal to 10+2 times your Fellowship bonus. Furthermore, if you have any allies adjacent to your Vanguard at the time of activating Follow My Lead, They also gain 2 movement points and can freely move to any cell adjacent to the Vanguard without provoking any attacks of opportunity. At level 19 overall or at level 4 of Vanguard, you get access to its ultimate ability, namely Unyielding Guard. When activating the Heroic Act version of Unyielding Guard, results in an immediate retaliation from your Vanguard when attacked, or when an ally within a 3-cell radius of the Vanguard is attacked until the end of the Vanguard's next turn. And as always, the Desperate Measures version of Unyielding Guard is exactly the same, but with a very big drawback, being the Vanguard also suffers an additional 30% damage from all attacks landed against it. At character levels 27 and 35 or Vanguard levels 12 and 20, you can upgrade your Unyielding Guard ability, and you have 4 different options to choose from. The first of which makes your Vanguard unkillable until the end of its next turn, and also reduces the amount of incoming damage equal to your toughness score until the start of your next turn. The second upgrade of Unyielding Guard makes it so that each and every successful hit on an enemy makes you the priority target of that enemy until the start of your next turn. The third upgrade option, and quite possibly my favorite of the bunch, gives your Vanguard a Paladin-like ability, reducing all of the incoming damage to allies within an area of effect of a radius of 3 cells around your Vanguard to take less damage equal to your Vanguard's toughness bonus divided by 2 until the end of the entire combat encounter. The last upgrade option to Unyielding Guard results in your Vanguard gaining a momentum bonus for each and every successful hit landed equal to their fellowship score. In Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, bounty hunters are the lone rangers, focused on hunting down one enemy at a time, dealing massive critical damage to any enemy they have marked as their quarry. In order to spec into the bounty hunter class at level 16, your rogue trader will need to have started its journey as either an operative or a marksman. This means to optimize your build, a bit of foresight and planning will be required, as an operative bounty hunter and a marksman bounty hunter do play somewhat differently. An operative bounty hunter naturally leans towards taking out enemies from afar, so definitely a combination to consider for the one-shot, one-kill crowd thanks to the bounty hunter's increased critical hit chance. A marksman bounty hunter, on the other hand, ends up being more of a mobility-oriented character, great for battlefield positioning due to their capability to weave through enemy ranks, catching them flat-footed in the process. From the get-go, when selecting your first level in the Bounty Hunter class, you gain access to its Keystone feature, Hunt Down the Prey, marking an enemy as your quarry and setting it up for a whole world of hurt to come. The benefits derived from marking an enemy as prey scales with the enemy's difficulty level, indicated with a small Roman numeral that can be seen within each of the enemy's portraits. Marking enemies with difficulty levels of 1 and 2 results in your bounty hunter increasing its maximum temporary wounds by 25%, whereas marking enemies with a difficulty rating of 3 and 4 results in your bounty hunter both having an increased chance of making a critical hit as well as the damage output potential from that critical hit landing. Your critical hit chance increases by a percentage equal to 2 times your prey's difficulty tier, whereas the damage output from a successful critical hit increases by 10 times your prey's difficulty level. During the 20 levels you will spend in the Bounty Hunter archetype, you will gain access to 3 different archetype abilities, and you can choose from one of the 6 available options at levels 17, 22, and 30. These Bounty Hunter archetype abilities are Cull the Bold, Slay the Game, Piercing Shot, Join the Pack, Hot on the Trail, and Set the Trap. The Cull the Bold archetype ability is up first, augmenting your bounty hunter's next attack in a variety of ways, by increasing the amount of damage dealt equal to your ballistic skill, as well as decreasing that enemy's armor by a percentage equal to 3 times that enemy's difficulty rating until the end of the combat. Furthermore, if that enemy's armor rating decreases below 20%, that enemy's dodge capability is also decreased by the amount that the armor was decreased in the first instance, On top of that, the Bounty Hunter's next attack against that enemy also deals additional damage equal to their ballistic skill plus their perception or intelligent bonus, whichever is bigger. If the enemy targeted by the Colder Bold ability is also marked as the Bounty Hunter's prey at the time of activation, the armor and dodge reduction penalty is also applied for all attacks made by your allies. Now, all of this together might sound a little bit complicated, so do yourself a favor and go and read the description carefully. This is an extremely powerful ability. Next up is Slay the Game, a great ability if you absolutely have to remove an enemy off of the field of battle that is running low on health. At the time of activating the Slay the Game ability, you are ensured and guaranteed to land your next shot against a single target. However, the damage dealt by this attack is decreased by a percentage of your ballistic skill bonus plus your perception bonus times 4. Furthermore, if this is the third enemy that you are killing using the Slay the Game ability within a combat encounter, your Bounty Hunter also gains 1 charge of Hunt Down the Prey. As well as if the target of Slay the Game was marked as your prey at the time of activation, your Bounty Hunter will also gain an additional 2 action points for that turn. Next up is the Piercing Shot ability. Extremely useful for targeting heavily armored enemies or making those through and through shots damaging multiple enemies within the line of fire. As such, when activating the Piercing Shot ability, the overpenetration value of your Bounty Hunter's next attack is increased by 100%, as well as its armor penetration percentage equal to 4 times your perception bonus. In addition to that, if at the time of making a piercing shot, the target of the attack is also marked as your prey, the next attack that hits that target is always a critical hit. The fourth Bounty Hunter archetype ability is Join the Pack, granting your allies an increased chance to make a critical hit and the damage dealt by critical hits equal to half the bonuses that the Bounty Hunter has at the time of activating the ability. Further, the next attack made by an ally on a marked target also does increase damage equal to a percentage of 2 times your Bounty Hunter's perception bonus. The next Bounty Hunter ability is Hot on the Trail, increasing your ally's 2 hit chance on a selected target by either 20 or 30% in the case that the difficulty tier of the target selected is equal to level 4. Furthermore, if your ally does kill the target of Hot on the Trail, then your Bounty Hunter immediately gains an additional turn after that ally's turn is done, carrying over all of its action and movement points at the time of activating Hot on the Trail, and also gains movement points equal to 2 plus the target's difficulty level divided by 2, and resets the cooldown period for Hot on the Trail. During a combat encounter, for every third enemy killed by your ally using the Hot on the Trail ability, your Bounty Hunter will also gain an additional use of Hunt Down the Prey. The last of the Bounty Hunter archetype abilities is Set the Trap, and this works exactly like it sounds, having your Bounty Hunter lay down a trap within a 10-cell radius around them. If an enemy combatant comes within a 2-cell radius of where the trap was laid, the trap is sprung, dealing 2 times your Bounty Hunter's perception bonus or intelligence bonus, depending on which is greater. Furthermore, all enemies affected by the trap's damage must also pass an agility resistance test, with a penalty to that check equal to the damage taken. If in the case an enemy fails this test, they are instantly immobilized, unable to move until the start of their next turn. If at the time of activating the trap, an enemy is also marked as prey, they automatically fail this agility test and instantly become immobilized. And as if that wasn't enough already, your Bounty Hunter will also gain movement points equal to its agility bonus. Abilities, which comes online at Bounty Hunter level 4 or character level 19 in the form of its Heroic Act and Desperate Measure, Wild Hunt. The Heroic Act version of Wild Hunt sees your Bounty Hunter immediately take action, attacking its marked targets that it can see within its line of sight, a number of times equal to all of the prey on the battlefield at that time. Furthermore, all of the attacks made in this way are guaranteed of being successful and critical hits. The Desperate Measures version of Wild Hunt also comes with the enormous debuff of decreasing your bounty hunter's ballistic skill, perception and agility scores by a total of 20 points. At character level 27 and 35 or bounty hunter level 12 and 20, you will have the opportunity to upgrade your Wild Hunt ultimate ability from a selection of 4 different options. The first decreases your prey's armor by a percentage equal to 3 times your perception bonus. The second, when activating Wild Hunt, your bounty hunter also gains movement points equal to your agility bonus and also restores 3 charges of your Hunt Down the Prey ability. The third upgrade option also decreases the movement points of your prey when activating Wild Hunt by a minimum value of 2 or the sum of your agility bonus minus 3. The fourth and final upgrade option to Wild Hunt sees the damage inflicted increase by 300% if in the case that only a single target is attacked when activating the Wild Hunt ability. In Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, the Master Tactician is all about increasing your allies' combat effectiveness, bolstering their resistance to incoming attacks, maximizing their damage output potential, and the accrual of momentum, decreasing the amount of time between the use of heroic acts. The Master Tactician archetype becomes available at level 16 and is only available to the Rogue Trader if you started its adventure as either an officer or a marksman. This means that at character creation, you might want to have an idea of what type of Master Tactician you plan on playing. The Officer Master Tactician further enhances the Officer playstyle, supporting allies and buffing them from a distance. Whereas if you go the Marksman Master Tactician route, the most optimized builds is likely to see you end up with a character that seamlessly blends hit and run guerrilla warfare tactics and single ally support capabilities. From the get-go, when choosing the Master Tactician archetype at level 16, you gain access to 2 keystone features, being its passive ability Tactical Advantage, which lets you gain stacks of Tactical Advantage, the currency of the Master Tactician, for every 5 points of momentum gained by yourself or your allies. Whereas the keystone feature needing activation during combat, Press the Advantage, increases your Master Tactician's next attack by 4% for each and every stack of tactical advantage it has at the time of activation. During the 20 levels you will spend in the Master Tactician archetype, you will gain access to 3 different archetype abilities and will be able to choose one of the 6 available options at levels 17, 22 and 30. These Master Tactician archetype abilities are Inspire, Linchpin, Strong Point, Assign Objective, Fervor, and Finish the Job. First up is Inspire, which lets you select an ally within a 10 cell radius, increasing their damage output potential by 1, plus 1 for every 10 stacks of tactical advantage your Master Tactician has at the time of activation. This ability can also be activated multiple times throughout combat, meaning that you can stack the additional damage provided by Inspire over multiple turns. However, activating the Inspire ability is not free, and each activation will cost you half of the total tactical advantage points that you have at that time. Additionally, if the ally being inspired by your Master Tactician activates their heroic act before it's the Master Tactician's next turn, you also gain a meager 25 points of momentum. Next up is Linchpin, with which you select an ally within a 10 cell radius, boosting their resolve by a point for each 5 stacks of tactical advantage that you have at the cost of half of your total amount of tactical advantage. This effect lasts until the end of the combat encounter and again is also stackable by activating Linchpin multiple times throughout the fight. On top of all of that, instead of gaining tactical advantage at 20% as per default until the start of your next turn, instead you gain tactical advantage equal to the total momentum you have at the time of activation times the sum of a percentage calculated by 20 plus 3 times your fellowship bonus. Or to put this a little bit more simply, a percentage of your momentum at that time, which is calculated off of your fellowship bonus. Next up is Strong Point, with which you select one friendly creature that you can see within a 10-cell radius, and granted one temporary wound for each 2 stacks of tactical advantage your Master Tactician has at that point in time, plus 2. When activating the Strong Point ability, your Master Tactician will also lose half of the tactical advantage stacks it has been able to accumulate at that point in time. Until the beginning of your next turn, every single time that ally takes damage and accumulates temporary wounds, that target gains momentum equal to the temporary wounds accumulated. The 4th Master Tactician ability available to be selected is Assign Objective, with which you can point to a target within a 20-cell radius and mark it for death. If one of your allies kills this target within that round of combat, that ally gains momentum equal to 10 plus 2 times your ally's resolve, as well as a plus 5 to all their characteristics until the end of the combat. The Fervor Master Tactician ability is how you get to reset all of your other Master Tactician abilities if they are currently on a cooldown. However, at the time of activation, your character will take damage equal to 20% of their maximum wounds. Further, your Master Tactician also gains stacks of tactical advantage equal to your Master Tactician's resolve. The last of the Master Tactician archetype abilities is the aptly named Finish the Job. In order for an enemy to be eligible to be selected as the target for the Finish the Job ability, that enemy needs to have been attacked by one of your allies, but not by the Master Tactician. Also, that enemy must have less than half of its total maximum wounds remaining. After selecting an eligible enemy, your Master Tactician then takes a single shot or strike at that enemy. This attack does not apply to your maximum attack limit per turn, dealing an amount of damage equal to half your weapon's maximum damage plus your ballistic skill. Depending on the swing of the momentum pendulum, during combat, your Master Tactician will gain access to its Heroic Act or Desperate Measure in Direct Firestorm or Last Volley. The Heroic Act of your ultimate ability in Directed Firestorm has your Master Tactician select a 3x3 zone on the battlefield. All of the enemies within the zone, which your allies and your Master Tactician itself can see at the time of activation, takes a single shot against a random enemy within that 3x3 area. The Desperate Measures version, however, comes with a significant disadvantage of decreasing all of your allies that took a shot as part of activating your ultimate abilities, ballistic and weapon skill by 20. On top of that, your Master Tactician also loses 40 points of fellowship until the end of that combat encounter. Whew, that is a rough one. At character levels 27 and 35, you will have opportunities to upgrade your Direct Firestorm ability. You can choose 2 of the 4 options, and let's go through them one by one. The first upgrade option allows one of your allies to, instead of making a single shot, take 2 shots at random enemies within the selected zone. The second upgrade option allows you to activate your Heroic Act or Desperate Measure multiple times throughout a combat encounter. The third upgrade option allows your allies that have access to automatic weaponry, instead of taking a single shot, take a burst fire when activating your Direct Firestorm or Last Volley ability. Also, until the start of your next turn, your allies will also dodge all friendly fire automatically. The last upgrade option is very similar to the third, but instead of allowing burst fire instead of single shot, your allies and your Master Tactician can use area of effect attacks if they are capable thereof. In Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, Arch-Militants are the masters of all weaponry, equally deadly in melee and at a distance using projectile and energy armaments, but most of all when attacking with a mixture of both. The Arch-Militant archetype becomes available at level 16 and can only be chosen if your level 15 character spec'd into either the warrior or a marksman at character creation, and depending which class you chose will affect your Arch-Militant's offensive playstyle. The warrior Arch-Militant may take an attack as it is charging into the front line, softening a target or targets before arriving to land the killing blow, whereas a marksman Arch-Militant is likely to deal most of its damage at range, and as enemies close the distance, engage in close quarter combat, before creating distance to once again rain down the Emperor's Wrath with bolt energy and elemental weaponry. From the onset, when you choose the Arch-Militant as your archetype at level 16, you gain its Keystone feature, in Right Tool for the Job, a passive ability that lets you accrue stacks of Right Tool for the Job that you will then use as currency to fuel all of the rest of the Arch-Militant archetype abilities. These stacks of Right Tool for the Job are earned by mixing up both ranged and close quarter attacks during a combat encounter. And for each and every stack, your Arch-Militant gains +5 to its weapons and ballistic skill. Further, at any time you have 4 stacks or more, your Arch-Militant will also do extra damage equal to its weapon skill or ballistic skill divided by 2, whichever is highest. During the 20 levels that you will spend in the Arch-Militant archetype, you will gain access to 3 different archetype abilities, and you will be able to choose from one of the 6 available options at levels 17, 22 and 30. These are Devastating Attack, Reckless Attack, Wildfire, Cautious Approach, Confident Approach and Kick. First up is Devastating Attack, which either knocks your enemy prone for 1 turn, inflicts the bleeding and slowed conditions on a target, or blinds a target until the end of your next turn if they fail a toughness resistance test after you hit it with a successful attack. The conditions affecting an enemy after a successful hit really does depend on the weapon you are wielding at the time of activation, being either impact, rending or energy damage. And your Arch-Militant can also in the later game impose multiple of these effects if they have a power sword or power axe or other weaponry that have multiple damage type associated with them. The toughness resistance test that needs passing by your target in order to negate these effects is also performed at a penalty equal to your ballistic or weapon skill times 2. Next up is the much simpler Arch-Militant ability, Reckless Rush, giving you a number of movement points equal to 3 plus your agility bonus. In addition to this, your Arch-Militant also doubles the amount of stacks of Right Tool for the Job that it has at the time of activating Reckless Rush. However, these also disappear at the end of your Arch-Militant's turn. The third ability we're going to be talking about is Wildfire, which with 2 stacks of Right Tool for the Job or more is in effect a free attack that you can make that also does not count against your attack limit for that turn. With this attack, you also gain 1 stack of Right Tool for the Job, no matter if your previous attack was in close quarters or at range. Next up is Cautious Approach, which lets you trade the normal benefits you get from a Right Tool for the Job and instead lets your Arch-Militant gain +5 to their dodge and parry for each and every stack of Right Tool for the Job that they have at the time of activation. Now, if you also have more than 4 stacks at the time of activation, Cautious Approach also removes all slowed, blinded, bleeding, burning and toxin effects, as well as making you immune to all of those and the stun and prone condition for as long as the ability is active. If running and gunning is a little bit more your speed, then the next ability, Confident Approach, is definitely your thing. Again, instead of the bonuses normally associated with Right Tool for the Job, your Arch-Militant will gain 5% dodge and parry reduction, as well as ignores 5% of enemy cover for each and every stack of Right Tool for the Job. And in the case that you have more than 4 stacks, all of the attacks made by your Arch-Militant also deals maximum damage for the duration that Confident Approach is active. The last archetype ability sees your Arch-Militant apply its boot to an enemy's face with Kick. In order to kick an enemy, you obviously need to be within melee range. And instead of dealing your weapon's normal damage, it deals damage equal to your toughness plus your strength bonuses, and this attack also does not count against your attack limit for that turn. The real benefit of activating this ability is that this kick ability cannot be parried and it will push your target 2 cells backwards. Great when multiple of your allies are within the threatened zone of a single target. At character level 19 or Arch-Militant level 4, you gain access to its ultimate ability. In its Heroic Act, Steady Superiority, or its Desperate Measure, Heroic Sacrifice. When activating the Steady Superiority Heroic Act, you will gain 1 additional attack action on each and every one of your turns after activating this Heroic Act. And your first action after activation on each and every one of those turns is also free, meaning that it does not cost you any action points to activate. Heroic Sacrifice, on the other hand, has exactly the same benefits as Steady Superiority. However, you also suffer a minus 30 penalty to your toughness and lose 10% of your maximum wounds for each and every turn due to the bleeding status effect being applied after activation. At character levels 27 and 35 or Arch-Militant levels 12 and 20, you will be able to upgrade your Arch-Militant's ultimate ability, and there are 4 options to choose from. The first lets your Arch-Militant restore 20% of its maximum wounds if in the case you drop to 0 wounds at the time that Steady Superiority or Heroic Sacrifice is active. This does need to be the first time this happens within the combat encounter though. The second upgrade option adds 2% to your critical chance for each and every attack attempted during that combat. If you choose the third upgrade option, your Arch-Militant won't be losing all of its movement points after making an attack. Furthermore, each attack made by your character also gives you a +5 bonus to your dodge for that round. The fourth and final of the upgrade options available to the Arch-Militant removes the limitation of only being able to use either the warrior or marksman's ultimate ability in the same combat encounter that you can activate your Arch-Militant's ultimate ability, which, if your party is accruing a lot of momentum points, can be devastating during battle. In Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, assassins are stone cold killers, with a keen eye for identifying a target's weaknesses and then focusing on exploiting those weaknesses, dealing maximum damage in order to eliminate them from the battlefield. In order to select the Assassin archetype at level 16, your Rogue Trader will need to have started its journey as either a warrior or an operative. This is quite an important consideration, as these starting archetypes play very differently, and as such will ultimately influence your Assassin's playstyle and capabilities. Generally speaking, though the Assassin abilities available to be selected do lean more into a melee focused build, whereas if you're planning on building a more range-oriented character, the synergistic options available are a bit more limited. Right from the get-go, when you spec into the Assassin archetype, you gain access to the Assassin's Keystone feature, Seek the Opening, a passive ability that lets your Assassin spot an opening or a chink in the armor on enemy combatants. Every time your Assassin strikes an opening during combat, they deal an additional 10% of the target's max wound damage. During combat, your Assassin can also mark additional openings by activating the Aim for the Opening ability. Activating this will see your Assassin choose an enemy within their line of sight and mark an additional opening on that enemy that can then be exploited in order to deal additional damage or inflict an additional status effect. During the 20 levels that you will spend in the Assassin archetype, you will gain access to 3 different archetype abilities, and you will be able to choose from one of 6 available options at levels 17, 22 and 30. These Assassin archetype abilities are Death Whisper, Elusive Shadow, Poised to Strike, Dance Macabre, Killing Edge and Fainting Attack. Before we get into the Assassin archetype abilities proper, let's have a quick look at a modifier that is unique to the Assassin called Lethality. An Assassin's Lethality is equal to its dodge or reduction bonus, whichever is highest. And as the name would suggest, it is an expression of how lethal your Assassin is. There are multiple of the Assassin archetype abilities that uses Lethality, in most cases modifying the total damage output potential from activating that ability. Death Whisper is up first, which lets your assassin make a free attack, which does not restrict your assassin's movement, however comes at the disadvantage of only dealing 25% of the normal damage. The benefit, however, of Death Whisper is if this attack is successful, it inflicts the hemorrhage condition on that target, which in effect lets them bleed out each and every turn for an amount of damage equal to your lethality score divided by 10. Next is the Elusive Shadow ability, which upon activation de-aggroes your assassin. Great for when you've dealt a huge amount of damage within a turn and want to ensure that most of the attacks coming back are not focused on your assassin specifically. Additionally, your assassin can also move through enemy spaces, gains a boost to their dodge and dodge reduction, as well as their damage output equal to 10%, and all half cover provides an assassin with 50% more cover efficiency. The buffs, however, gained by activating the Elusive Shadow ability are removed after you make your first attack. When activating the Poised to Strike ability, your assassin selects a target, decreasing their armor by a percentage equal to 2 times your assassin's agility bonus, as well as that target's deflection bonus equal to your assassin's perception or intelligence bonus. Furthermore, if there is only one enemy adjacent to your assassin at the time of activating Poised Strike, you gain a bump to your dodge equal to 2 times your assassin's agility bonus. Whereas if there are no enemies adjacent to your assassin, then you gain a dodge reduction bonus percentage equal to 2 times your perception or intelligence bonus until the end of your next turn. Next up is Dance Macabre, which sees your assassin weave through the enemy lines, dodging attacks as they go. Upon activation of Dance Macabre, you select a cell equal to 1 plus your agility bonus divided by 2 in a straight line. Your assassin will then sprint to that location with an increase to its dodge of a percentage equal to 2 times your assassin's agility bonus. Any successful attacks of opportunity you are still unable to dodge has their damage reduced by your weapon skill bonus. If your assassin is running into cover, however, and also doesn't dash through any enemies in the process of getting to that cover, you will also gain an additional cover efficiency of 2 times your assassin's perception or intelligence bonus, whichever is bigger. When activating the Fainting Attack ability, your assassin's next single target attack suffers a minus 50% armor penetration ability but doesn't go below 0, as well as adds 10 to your lethality score. If this attack is a melee attack, that target is spun around 180 degrees, losing its dodge and parry against your assassin's attacks until the start of the enemy's next turn. If your fainting attack was ranged, however, that target is forced to move 3 cells away from your assassin, and this forced movement does provoke attacks of opportunity. The Killing Edge ability allows the target of your next attack to try and dodge out of the way of your incoming strike, increasing their dodge ability by 40%. However, if this attack lands, it deals an additional amount of damage equal to your lethality score divided by 7. Further, if that attack also hits an opening, your assassin deals an additional amount of damage of a percentage equal to its lethality score. So this is a little bit of a risk and reward type of tactic, but if it lands, it is deadly. At character level 19 or assassin level 4, you gain access to its ultimate ability, in Dispatch. Upon activation of the Heroic Act version of Dispatch, your assassin makes an attack that is guaranteed to hit, dealing an additional 50% damage and 25% for each and every wound that is missing. Furthermore, for this attack, your assassin's dodge, dodge reduction, armor penetration, and parry reduction is doubled. The Desperate Measures version of Dispatch, however, also sees your assassin suffer double damage until the end of the combat. So think very carefully before activating this, only useful in dire situations. As per usual, you can upgrade your assassin's ultimate ability at level 27 and 35, and there are 4 different options to choose from. The first of which lets the target of your dispatch lose half of its current armor and deflection. The second upgrade option deals additional damage equal to 45% of that target's missing wounds instead of the normal 25%. The third upgrade option lets your assassin gain temporary wounds equal to their lethality score divided by 15 each and every time it makes a successful hit on an opening. For the fourth and final upgrade option, if your assassin kills the target of dispatch, all of the enemies within a 3-cell radius around the dispatch target gains 2 stacks of the disturbed effect, suffering a -20 penalty to their willpower and fellowship until the end of the combat encounter. Furthermore, these enemies must also pass an agility resistance test, and on a failed save, they also suffer a -20 penalty to their weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, and agility scores. In Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, Grand Strategists are the masters of battlefield positioning for themselves and their allies, increasing the battle effectiveness of their party and designating and strengthening important parts of the battlefield. In order to select the Grand Strategist archetype at level 16, your Rogue Trader will need to have started its journey as either an officer or an operative. Now, even though I could certainly see a viable build for an operative Grand Strategist, calling the shots from a distance and making those shots together with their party members, I feel that this combination just doesn't synergize nearly as well from both a thematic and mechanical point of view as the Officer Grand Strategist does. Your mileage, of course, may vary. From the get-go, when you spec into the Grand Strategist archetype, you gain access to its keystone feature, Combat Tactics, which allows you to designate different parts of the battlefield, being the front line, mid, or rear, adding buffs to your allies and debuffs to your enemies intuitively based on the positioning on the battlefield where those areas are. The frontline designation gives your allies a boost to their armor, whereas at the same time it increases the amount of damage taken by your enemies from all sources. Conversely, designating an area as the backline increases party members within that area's cover efficiency, dodge, and dodge reduction, whereas assigning an area as the rear is mainly focused on range type of attacks, increasing range damage over penetration and critical hit chance for allies within that designated area. During the 20 levels that you will spend in the Grand Strategist archetype, you will gain access to 3 different archetype abilities, or stratagems in the case of the Grand Strategist. You will be able to choose from one of 6 available options at levels 17, 22, and 30. These Grand Strategist stratagems are Kill Zone, Overwhelming, Stronghold, Blitz, Combat Locus, and Trench Line. First up is the Kill Zone stratagem, allowing you to select one of your combat tactics areas, and for the remainder of that round forces all of the enemies within that area to re-roll all successful dodge and parry tests. Additionally, all enemies that take damage while Kill Zone is active dies instantly if in the case that they have less than 2 times your fellowship or intelligence bonus in wounds remaining after that damage is taken. Next up is Overwhelming Stratagem, with which you grant your allies within a combat tactics area the covering status effect for all attacks made. Enemies making attacks into this area suffer penalties to their ballistic skill, rate of fire, and weapon skills. Where ballistic skill is decreased by 5 + 2 times your Grand Strategist intelligence or fellowship bonus, rate of fire is decreased by 25%, and the weapon skill of all of those enemies is decreased by 5 + your Strategist's intelligence or fellowship bonus. Additionally, all melee enemies will also have their movement points decreased, whereas ranged enemies will try and get behind cover immediately. The next Grand Strategist stratagem, say that 3 times quick, is the Stronghold stratagem. Again, with your Strategist selecting an area and then buffing that area for all of your allies. Allies within this area gains an armor percentage equal to 3 + your Grand Strategist intelligence or fellowship bonus. They cannot be overpenetrated from incoming ranged attacks, cannot be knocked prone, as well as gain the Grand Strategist intelligence plus fellowship bonus divided by 4 deflection against area of effect attacks. Furthermore, for the remainder of the round, they also cannot sustain any injuries from taking damage. When selecting an area to be affected by the Blitz stratagem, All allies within a range equal to your Grand Strategist Intelligence plus Fellowship bonus can move to the designated area immediately, with this movement not provoking attacks of opportunity and also doesn't cost any movement points from your allies. Next up is the Combat Locus stratagem, which in effect when activated doubles all of the bonuses associated with your combat tactics ability for that area until the start of your next turn. This does come with a downside however, whereas all tactical areas are discharged and cannot be used that turn, but can be designated again on the next round. Last but not least is the Trench Line stratagem, which when activated grants all of your allies within that area a percentage of cover efficiency equal to 5 plus your Grand Strategist Intelligence and Fellowship bonus. Furthermore, all of your allies can re-roll all failed characteristic tests, and all cover within that area does not suffer any damage until the start of your next turn. At character level 19 or Grand Strategist level 4, you gain access to its ultimate ability, Take and Hold. The Heroic Act version of Take and Hold sees your Grand Strategist choose one of the combat tactics areas, and all allies within that area gains an additional turn with 1 action point and 1 movement point at the start of your next turn. Furthermore, and the best part of this, each and every creature that is killed during the time that Take and Hold is active further increases the amount of action points and movement points your allies get by +1 for action points and +2 for movement points, up to a maximum of 3 and 6 respectively. The Desperate Measures version of Take and Hold isn't really that detrimental compared to other ultimate abilities from other classes, with its downside associated with activating it decreases the amount of movement points that your Grand Strategist has until the end of combat by 1. That's not that bad, is it? At character level 27 and 35 or Grand Strategist level 12 and 20, you can upgrade your ultimate abilities. And as always, there are 6 different options to choose from. The first increases all of your allies' dodge, parry and armor by 20% within the selected tactics area. The second upgrade option also buffs your allies by buffing their weapons and ballistic skill by 20 points. The third upgrade option results in all attacks made by your allies located within the area to ignore 20% of all enemy dodge and armor, whereas the fourth and final upgrade option increases the maximum number of action points granted by Take and Hold to a total of 5 action points.